June 1942. The Pacific Ocean feels enormous and terrifying. 6 months earlier, flames rose over attack on Pearl Harbor. Battleships burned. Thousands died. The United States had been humiliated. Japan now dominates the Pacific. Their navy is experienced, victorious, confident. American forces are wounded, but not broken. In Pearl Harbor, inside a quiet headquarters, overlooking the same waters that were attacked, one man studies intercepted messages and fleet positions. He does not shout. He does not panic. He calculates. His name is Chester W. Nimitz, and within days he will gamble everything not on numbers, not on strength, but on intelligence, timing, and courage. The battle that follows will sink 4 Japanese aircraft carriers and permanently shift the balance of World War II in the Pacific. This is the story of the Admiral who turned the tide at Midway. When Nimitz assumed command of the Pacific Fleet in December 1941, he inherited devastation. The attack on Pearl Harbor had crippled America's battleship force. 8 battleships were damaged or destroyed. Hundreds of aircraft were gone. Confidence was shaken. But beneath the destruction was one crucial fact. The aircraft carriers had not been in port during the attack. This mattered more than anyone fully realized at the time. Nimitz understood something many traditional naval officers were still adjusting to. The age of the battleship was ending. The aircraft carrier was now the dominant weapon of naval warfare. Carriers could strike hundreds of miles away. They could project power without direct ship-to-ship engagement. And the United States still had carriers: the USS Enterprise, USS Hornet, USS Yorktown. 3 decks of possibility. Japan, meanwhile, was expanding rapidly across the Pacific, capturing territories, threatening Australia, and consolidating dominance. Their navy was battle-hardened, experienced from years of war in China. Morale in America was fragile. The nation needed not just defense, but victory. Nimitz brought something critical to the moment: calm discipline. He did not react emotionally to Japan's early successes. He rebuilt carefully. He evaluated strengths and weaknesses. He reorganized command structures. Most importantly, he trusted intelligence officers and codebreakers. He understood that raw strength alone would not win the next engagement. Information would. And somewhere in the Pacific, Japan was already planning its next move. Inside a basement intelligence unit in Hawaii known as Station Hypo, American cryptanalysts were working around the clock. Japanese naval communications were encoded using a complex cipher system known as JN-25. Breaking it was slow, frustrating work. But by early 1942, partial breakthroughs began revealing patterns. One recurring target designation kept appearing: AF. Japanese forces were planning a major operation against AF. Nimitz's intelligence chief, Commander Joseph Rochefort, believed AF was Midway Island, a small but strategically vital American outpost northwest of Hawaii. If Midway fell, Japan could threaten Hawaii directly, but suspicion was not enough. Nimitz approved a clever test. Midway sent an unencrypted radio message stating that its desalination system had failed and the island was short on fresh water. Soon after, American codebreakers intercepted a Japanese message reporting that AF is short on water. Confirmation. Japan was coming for Midway. Now Nimitz faced a decision. He could fortify defensively and wait, or he could position his carriers to ambush the most powerful naval strike force Japan possessed. He chose the latter. Outnumbered in carriers and aircraft, he would rely on surprise and timing. He positioned American carriers northeast of Midway, hidden from Japanese scouting routes. If all went according to plan, Japan would believe they were launching an attack. In reality, they would sail directly into a trap. The architect of Japan's Midway operation was Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, brilliant, educated in the United States. A strategic thinker, Yamamoto understood America's industrial power. He believed Japan needed a decisive naval victory early in the war, one so devastating that the United States would negotiate peace. Midway was designed to be that decisive blow. His plan was complex, perhaps too complex. Multiple task forces spread across hundreds of miles. A diversionary attack in the Aleutians. A main carrier strike force approaching Midway. Yamamoto believed American carriers would rush to defend the island and be destroyed. What he did not know was that Nimitz already knew much of the plan. Japan sailed with confidence. America waited in silence. Dawn, June 4, 1942. Japanese carrier aircraft roared into the sky, engines cutting through the morning air. Their target, Midway Island, bombs fell. Explosions rocked the small American base. Anti-aircraft fire clawed upward. Smoke rose into the Pacific sky. From a distance, it appeared Yamamoto's plan was unfolding perfectly. American forces launched their own aircraft from Midway and from the hidden carriers to the northeast. But coordination was chaotic. Squadrons became separated. Timing fractured. Then came the torpedo bombers. Flying low and slow, American TBD devastators from the USS Hornet, Enterprise, and Yorktown pressed forward without fighter escort. They were outdated aircraft, vulnerable and underarmed. Japanese Zero fighters descended upon them. One by one, American planes were shot down. Pilots held their course anyway. They flew straight into concentrated anti-aircraft fire and fighter swarms. Many never released their torpedoes. Entire squadrons were nearly wiped out. It looked like total failure. But their sacrifice achieved something critical. The Japanese Combat Air Patrol, their protective fighter screen, had been pulled down to sea level. Japanese carriers were in the middle of rearming aircraft for a second strike. Bombs and fuel lines cluttered their hangar decks. Above the clouds, unseen and undetected, American dive bombers were searching. And the sky was about to change forever. At approximately 10:20 a.m., dive bombers from the USS Enterprise and USS Yorktown found their target. Below them, 3 Japanese carriers, Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu, perfectly positioned. Completely vulnerable. American pilots pushed their aircraft into steep dives, screaming toward the decks below. Anti-aircraft fire erupted, but it was too late. Bombs struck. Kaga was hit first. Explosions tore through aircraft packed with fuel and munitions. Flames engulfed the deck. Soryu followed, struck multiple times. Firestorms consumed the carrier within minutes. Akagi, flagship of the Japanese strike force, was hit by a single devastating bomb that penetrated into her hangar deck. In less than 5 minutes, 3 of Japan's elite carriers were burning beyond recovery. The balance of naval air power in the Pacific shifted instantly, but the battle was not over. One carrier remained. Hiryu. Hiryu responded with fury. Her aircraft launched counterattacks that located and struck the USS Yorktown. Bombs and torpedoes crippled the American carrier. Smoke poured from her decks. For a moment, the battle seemed uncertain again. But American search planes continued scanning the ocean. By mid-afternoon, dive bombers located Hiryu. They descended just as they had that morning. Bombs found their mark. Hiryu erupted in flames. By nightfall, all 4 of Japan's frontline fleet carriers, veterans of Pearl Harbor, were either sinking or abandoned. The Imperial Japanese Navy had lost irreplaceable pilots, aircraft, and experience. America had lost 1 carrier. Japan had lost strategic dominance. Back in Pearl Harbor, Nimitz received reports as the battle unfolded. he did not celebrate prematurely. He understood war rarely ended in a single day. But as confirmation arrived, 4 Japanese carriers destroyed, the magnitude became clear. Midway was not just a tactical victory. It was a strategic earthquake. Japan could no longer conduct large-scale offensive carrier operations at the same tempo. Their experienced aircrews were gone. Training replacements would take years. The United States, meanwhile, was accelerating production. Shipyards were already building new carriers at unprecedented speed. Midway bought time. And in war, time is power. Nimitz had taken a calculated risk. He had trusted intelligence. He had positioned his limited forces precisely. And the gamble had paid off. Historians would later call the Battle of Midway the turning point of the Pacific War. After Midway, Japan shifted largely to defensive operations. The United States seized the initiative. From Guadalcanal to the Philippine Sea, American forces pushed westward, island by island. Year by year, the road to Tokyo began not with overwhelming numbers, but with one decisive moment of preparation and courage. Nimitz never sought dramatic recognition. He remained composed, steady, and focused on the next operation. But without his decision-making in those critical weeks before June 1942, the Pacific War might have unfolded very differently. Midway proved that intelligence, timing, and disciplined leadership could overcome numerical disadvantage. And in doing so, it reshaped the course of World War II. In war, victory does not always belong to the strongest fleet. Sometimes it belongs to the calmest mind. Chester W. Nimitz did not win at Midway with overwhelming force. He won with patience, with trust in intelligence, with the courage to gamble when hesitation meant defeat. In 5 minutes, the Pacific War changed. But those 5 minutes were built on months of preparation. Midway was more than a battle. It was the moment the tide turned. And at the center of that turning tide stood one quiet admiral who refused to panic.